All right, so we're now recording, Matt. It's like Mondays with Matt. Well, Matt, we've had so much amazing feedback on our recent blog posts, and we've had so many questions. You and I thought it might be a great opportunity to get out here and answer some of the questions. Maybe before we talk about the higher education case study that recently got some great feedback, we could talk first about who you are in MICA. So those who might not be familiar with MICA can learn a little bit more about you and the company you started.
Awesome. Yeah. No. So I started MICA just over 9 years ago. We're a national recruiting firm that focuses in on marketing and everything that kind of feeds into marketing, from the CMO down the org chart. And we recruit for those positions through ad agencies, corporate entities, as well as higher ed and startup functions as well. So we really cover everything. It's the glue that holds it all together is the marketing capabilities. So that's a bit about MICA, and we're a small team, but we've got presence across the country with some folks in California and a big group of us here in the Northeast as well. So our client sites also kind of range that far as well.
And you have a little bit of a different approach than other recruiting firms, don't you, for MICA?
We do. I'm actually the only one that's a recruiter by trade. Everybody else is a marketing exec by trade, either a corporate function or ad agency side. So the cool thing about the team that we've assembled here is that they've all either hired, managed, or actually done every position that we recruit for. So when we sit down with the CMO or the CEO hiring a CMO, we have the opportunity to really talk about a peer-to-peer conversation when it comes to marketing. I've been able to at least gain credibility over the last 18 years because that's been my focus. Even before starting MICA, I was with a management consulting firm where I ran an executive search business that was specifically for marketing execs. So I've been able to at least over 18 years get enough credibility to have those conversations. And then the rest of the partners here at MICA all have, like I said, either done the job, hired for the job, or been in that seat before. So little unique compared to our competition.
Well, that certainly leads into the case study you put together on higher education, and a lot of that unique sense about MICA is really what helped solve that challenge. So can you explain a little bit more about who that higher education client was looking for, how you pulled the whole assignment together? It seemed like that special sauce from MICA made a big difference.
Yeah, it definitely did. And, this is a very prestigious university in Boston. And as it happens, I placed their chief marketing officer 2 years ago. And one of the reasons that they brought her in as the chief marketing officer was that they really wanted to fundamentally change the way they were doing their marketing from a brand perspective. And she was kind of the linchpin to making that happen. So she came in, like I said, about 2 years ago, and really started to look at the culture of the organization from a marketing perspective. And her charge was to really bring everything in-house. They had a very decentralized model where they had some resources internally from a creative perspective. They had some resources internally from a design perspective and copy and content, but they also partnered with a lot of agencies. And really one of her charges was to reduce the number of agencies, but still keep some really strategic partners because they do add a lot of value to what they were doing, but ultimately bring all of those other types of resources in-house as best they could and create their own internal agency. So she had started down that road and that process of, gaining internal buy-in. As you can imagine in higher ed, that takes a little while to make some of these big strategic changes. When she got to that point where she really had everybody pointed in the right direction that she needed to at the university, she came to us and said, now it's time to build this team out. And I got to do it in less than 90 days because we got to strike while the iron's hot. Everybody's bought in. Now we need to get a VP of marketing operations. We need to hire a head of design, a senior art director, a senior copy person, a UX UI person. So there were about eight or 10 roles altogether that she needed to have hired within a 90-day period. And so she came and talked to us, and we started that process with her by sitting down and really kind of flushing out what she needed to accomplish, what were the departments that she needed, and what were the priorities of those hires in order to ensure that that she had the right stepping stones to then actually start to execute within 120 days on her marketing plan. So it was a pretty big undertaking and a bold one at that for her.
Absolutely. Well, people have the misconception that bringing in a recruiter might be higher quality of talent, but it's slower. It sounds like you had a really fast quality and speed assignment.
Yeah, we flew through it. I think the fact that we were really in the internal agency when this project started, we helped them really understand the market as well. It's like, with the UX UI's positions, the marketing operations, what's the market out there look like? What are the budgets they need to have for salaries? One of the real interesting pieces about this too is that they were more inclined to hire outside of the higher ed world than they were inside the higher ed world, because they are changing the way that marketing's done for higher ed. They didn't want kind of business as usual and bringing in other people from other universities. So we really started, that was part of our recruiting plan, and why we had to do it so quickly. It also allowed us to have a much broader candidate pool than if the university had said, we only want people from higher ed. So that opened up our candidate pool pretty good, which is good and bad, because that means there's more people to talk to, but that also means there's more people to talk to because it takes longer. So we had to be really specific and strategic in the types of profiles that we were looking at, where people were coming from. And funny enough, we had to educate the candidate pool as well, because there is a misconception in some people's minds that, oh, I'm going to work at higher ed, this is going to be easy, I get summers off, which is completely not the case. And I don't think anywhere, but even more so here, is that this is building a new culture of an ad agency within higher ed. So there was definitely some candidate education that we had to do throughout the process too. And because we were partnered so close with them and they gave us such good detailed information up front, we were able to really expedite the process and get the interviews going as quickly as we did. And that was due to the partnership that we had with the CMO and her hiring managers.
I know a lot of hiring managers might know this term, but I don't think a lot of marketers know the term candidate mapping. Can you talk about what that was? And it sounds like you were starting to talk a little bit about that, but it would be good to kind of clarify some of that terminology for those who are watching who may not understand that term.
Yeah. So candidate mapping is basically when we take a position on, we talk with the hiring managers about what's their perfect profile of the candidates that they want to interview. We then take that information and we layer it on top of the market. And so we'll use the example for the marketing operations person for the search, one of the searches we did at the university. They wanted somebody who had either come from an ad agency or had come from an internal agency. And also they wanted somebody that had been part of a process of building that capability. So at a small independent agency, maybe the first person that came in to hire and really put the operational structure around the agency, or somebody that was hired at a bigger company to build their internal agency. We really felt that was a key component, because that's what this role was going to be doing. And so that's what we looked at when we look at candidate mapping, is we then can trace back with those experiences, the experiences of the individuals that we're targeting. And we can do that geographically. For this particular situation, we really wanted to stay in the Northeast because of the time frame. We didn't want to get into relocation requirements. And we felt that the talent in the local market was definitely strong enough to produce the results we wanted from a candidate pool. So basically what it is you just take all the information from the client that they want in the perfect candidate, and then you put that on top of the geography and the industry and the disciplines of marketing. And then we use our tools like LinkedIn and a bunch of other things that we subscribe to then generate a candidate list of probably around 75 or 80 people that we want to go talk to. Doesn't mean that they're interested or they're applicants. They're people that we think could fit for the position based on all of the criteria that our client gave us. And then we reach out to them.
Wow. And so how long does that process usually take versus how long this particular client asked you to do it?
Yeah, well, it usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks. We can produce candidates for interview. And that's what we did with this project. The interesting part of this project is it wasn't just one role, it was 8 roles. So we had to do all of that for 8 different positions. And I think there were only maybe 2 positions that were similar. And that one was a a visual designer and one was a digital designer. And those two roles were similar, but every other position was unto itself a different discipline. So it was pretty aggressive, but we were able to pull it together, and they were interviewing candidates within 3 weeks. They had candidates to interview.
That's amazing. So, and did you end up meeting that 90-day timeline? Was that what the results were?
We did, yeah. We were able to get every position hired. I think the last position hired was on the 89th day, but we were able to crank through them. The ratio of interviews to hires was great. We submitted for each position either 3 or 4 candidates, and one of those 3 or 4 candidates was hired in each one of the positions. So it really worked really smoothly, and a great partnership with their team as well, because the scheduling can get crazy. And they had a chief of staff who was just, she kept the trains running on time.
There we go. And a long-term relationship with that CMO that you've had for many years before and will continue after.
Yeah, for sure. It was a fantastic project, and we're really excited about it. And now everybody's been in their seats for a few months and doing fantastic.
That's amazing. Well, if anyone watching this wants to see the full case study, it's on the MICA LinkedIn page. It's also on Matt's LinkedIn page. And of course, reach out to Matt or Mike at any time if you have more questions. But thanks for Monday with Matt today, Matt.
Thanks so much, Jen. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.